Rana? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hada, for inviting me to speak to the group, to the chapter here, and thank you for introducing. Uh, Indeed, it has been a great journey for me. It has been a self-transforming journey for me. So even before I help others, I think this walk of last 6, 7 years of walking alongside ICF competencies have enabled me, have empowered me more than anyone else. So I take really a very high pride in being associated with ICF and now enabling this change in society across. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. A very warm good evening to all the members, all the friends, all the colleagues from different parts of the world. I'm really honored to be here to speak about one of the most interesting and one of the most complex topics, which is ICF credentialing exam these days. Uh, because as we all know, ICF has been quite invested in terms of building credibility to the whole process of people becoming coaches, and that is one of the core reasons why ICF has done a lot of changes around the exam. And I am here because I've recently got this opportunity to attempt this exam by myself. On 18th of June, I attempted this exam and I really felt it. I experienced it in hand of what happens when you go for the exam. So I have collected a few insights through my experience. I have collected through ICF's guidelines, ICF's videos, and I have mixed them all to create a very simple structure for anyone to probably proceed in terms of preparing. I hope I'm audible to all of you. Clear? If you want me to slow down, do let me know. If you want me to fast pace my volume a bit, do let me know. Yeah. So I have created a very small deck that I'm going to be sharing with Hada, which you can really access at your discretion later as well. The session is getting recorded. You can check the recording as well. So, namaste from India to ICF Kuwait chapter. And again, thank you for inviting me to come and speak on this topic, which is ICF credentialing exam. The biggest question that we have in front of us as coaches is why ICF has introduced a new examination, why a new way of assessing candidates' knowledge and other things. So, even before I start, I would like to invite the audience to share if you know anything about why ICF has introduced this new examination. Anybody who has recently appeared or is preparing for their examination, you can raise your hands or you can unmute yourself and talk with all of us here. Anybody who's preparing for the exam or has recently attempted the exam from today's present audience? Okay, so Kanika is a part of Butterfly Coaching Academy as well, and she's from India. She's a fellow coach with me. She has attempted the exam in recent past. So, can anyone try? Would anyone would like to try why ICF has changed this examination and the entire format of examination? Okay, so since nobody is answering this question, I'll attempt this answer. Why a new exam? Now, ICF has set up an intention with this change in exam. So this exam is not just a flash in the pan. This exam is not just a fluke. This exam is not just an exam which has been made tougher without any reason or which has been made a bit complex without any reason. Everything that ICF has done is backed up by an intention. And as ICF coaches, as part of ICF community, as part of the responsible the responsibility that we have on our shoulders when we meet our clients, when we meet our stakeholders, when we offer our services, it's important that we become that person rather than only doing the job of that person. Becoming that person is more important than only doing the job. So you should not look at doing coaching without becoming a coach, without embodying that coaching mindset. Now, this intention is that ICF doesn't only wants to focus on the coach's knowledge of competency. So far, the old coach knowledge assessment test was primarily focused on the knowledge of the coach about the competencies. Now, this test, the intention has moved from only knowing the knowledge of the coach about the competencies, which can be learned like a student. ICF is now more interested in terms of knowing, in terms of observing the ability of a coach to make judgments and decisions with the knowledge that the coach has. So just knowing is not enough. The coach must be able to leverage that knowledge in terms of taking those decisions when the coach is forming those relationships with the clients and stakeholders, when the coach is forming those agreements with the clients and the stakeholders. And the first intention is knowledge is good, okay, but through this examination, through this assessment, we would like to observe you. We would like to notice what kind of decisions are you taking in your coaching practice. Now, that alone cannot be determined from your coach recording, and hence this exam has been equipped to observe your decision-making capability with respect to the core competencies. Now, that's the intention. Going further, so far, ICF introduced the old coach knowledge assessment examination in the year 2015, almost after 20 years of its operations, because ICF felt that there is a need to know the coach knowledge as well beyond the recording, beyond the audit of the recording of the coach and accrediting the coach. At this stage, ICF wanted to align this examination with the global standards of certification, not just any other exam which is happening in isolation, not just any other exam that can be attempted from anywhere in the world, not just any exam which is not being observed, not just any exam that anybody can take. This has to be a global standard examination, and there is a why to it as well. ICF has now started to recognize the value and integrity of the credential. While it is important that many people walk the path of becoming a coach and help the world become a better place, but integrity of the credential and value among the clients and relevant stakeholders has become a very important and critical agenda for ICF, because somewhere down the line, during many researches, it is observed that many people and many organizations have started calling or using coaching as a word, and it has become a very commonly used word, very cliched word right now. And to find that value that ICF coaches bring on the table, the value that ICF coaches create for the world, for the stakeholders, it is important that we create and build up the integrity of the credential. If you are an ICF accredited coach, your credential must speak more for you than you have to speak for yourself. Now, that is again one of the intentions for reforming the whole examination, for reproducing, for recreating the whole examination, and to build fairness and equity. And to build fairness and equity, which means, and to build fairness and equity means there has to be an alignment of the cross-cultural approaches to coaching, of the cross-cultural uh, belongingness to the coaching. And it is not just a matter of three levels of credential. It is a matter of the real fairness that should be bring into the system, where a coach is not just measured on their linguistic capability, but also on their potential to reflect those decision makings. Now, these factors, they created ICF to go for reforming the whole exam. Now, all these factors that you see, they're not going to be explicitly communicated across, but this has been through different webinars that ICF has conducted, different exam credential modules that ICF has put in on the learning portal that we have picked up and created. The whole part is that this exam adds more value to your credential. This exam creates more value for you as an individual, for the organization as a whole, which is ICF. Now, this exam is, again, as I said, this exam is not just a flash in the pan. It's not just a one-time activity. It's not just like somebody someday woke up and said that I need to change the exam. This exam is basically a very scientific walk. This exam is like a baby, which is evolving, which is evolved over a period of many years, many researches. The evolutionary step that has happened in this exam is this exam has moved from an unproctored mode of delivery to a proctored mode of delivery. Now, in an unproctored mode, you don't know who's attempting the examination. You don't know, you cannot see the person attempting the examination. and you are not really authenticating the credentials of that person. You're not authenticating the identity of that person. Now, moving to this evolutionary step number one, ICF says that we really need to observe the person attempting the examination. Is the same person coming? Is the same person attempting? Is the same person becoming the coach? Or is there anything else happening? Because unproctored exam cannot bring, cannot allow ICF to build that governance, which is important for any exam's credibility to go higher. There are two ways, which I'll explain in a bit of time, how these two ways can be done using the proctored exam. CKA, Old Coach Knowledge Assessment Exam, was only one form, which means across levels, ACC, PCC, MCC, across retakes, across many number of attempts, this was only one form, which was limited questions. I think around 155 questions were there, which you were supposed to attempt in 180 minutes. There was only one form. So if you have not attempted with a good marks in first attempt, the same questions with the same sequence are going to be repeated again and again. There is no change. So ICF has moved from one form to multiple form. As of now, ICF has created a repository of about 300 questions that come in different forms and become those 81 questions which are primarily shown to your screen when you attempt this exam. So there are multiple forms. So if you go for a retake, there'll be a the different intensity of test given to you. It is not going to be the same question test that is going to be sent to you. There can be some questions coming together again and again, but there is a different form for different intensities of the paper. Reliable and controlled. ICF as of now has not given more than 8 questions for any of the fellow coach who's preparing to prepare for more. ICF is making this examination a more unknown examination. It's something which is not overly exposed. The students cannot really go through those questions, cannot know those questions pre-hand, cannot prepare their answers pre-hand, cannot really reduce the value and integrity of the examination, and a very controlled. ICF is going to publish number of questions with time again and again for all those questions which are going to be becoming an obsolete question from the test point of view, and new questions are introduced. So you'll keep seeing these 8 questions becoming 16 questions and 24 questions and 32 questions over a period of time, and ICF expanding it further. But right now, it's very reliable and controlled. It is developed by existing coach mentors. None of the question has been designed by any other person who's not a qualified coach mentor. Now, 2019, when ICF revised their competencies, core competency number 2 was introduced for the first time, which is embodiment of the coaching mindset. And that is why we know these 8 competencies. Before 2019, the total number of competencies were 11. And ICF reduced those competencies from 11 to 8, consolidating a few, which were getting repeated or getting invariably not addressed, and introducing embodiment of coaching mindset. So this test was required because the new competencies were demanding something else from the coaches, and the test was not able to fulfill that need. Now, again, this is an evolutionary step, and that is the reason why ICF has moved from coach knowledge assessment to ICF credentialing exam. The word is changing here from assessment to examination. Assessment to examination. In assessment, you are assessing a person's capability, but in examination, you are also examining the person's ability. You're putting more effort in terms of noticing how the person is responding to the question, how the person is finding the question, how the person is selecting the answer. All these things are getting considered, which I'll explain again in some time. ICF has tested this exam for 2 years under a very strong proctored mechanism with different coaches across the globe. ICF has tested. So this test is not launched again overnight. This test is not something that ICF has, again, some people may think that ICF just woke up one day and to create value, they created a test which is very complex and very difficult. No. ICF applied these questions for 2 full years. They testified the results, they measured the results, they analyzed the results, they saw how many people are passing, they observed the difficulty levels of the questions, difficulty levels of the scenarios, and the options, and everything. And after that rigorous testing and rigorous piloting of the whole exam, they launched this exam, I think in 2022. Or maybe 21. I don't remember the date exactly, which I'll confirm. That's the why of the exam. As the name of the webinar between Pada and myself, we selected the why the what and the how part, why this exam, what has changed in the exam, and how we are going to prepare for this exam to be in a better state to qualify. If you have any questions, you can mark your question in the chat box. We'll come back to it later. If you want to ask any question right away, we can take a short break of 1 minute or 2 minutes and you can address your questions there. Any doubts, any questions, anything that you think that I explained which is not clear to you, you can ask. Now, this is about why ICF credentialing exam. Coming from the why of ICF credentialing exam, I am moving to what is new in this exam, what has changed in this exam. And this is very important for us to know. All those fellow coaches who are going to apply for their ACC, PCC, MCC licenses will be required to attempt this examination. If you are more than 1 year of ACC and now going for your PCC, you will again have to appear for your examination. So it's not that you have completed one level and you have attempted the examination once. If you have attempted the examination once and you're reappearing for the examination second time, within a year, 365 days gap, you'll have to reappear for the examination again. Now, the development of the exam, again, has been quite intensive. ICF has opted for 81 exam items, which means there are 81 examination questions that are going to be asked in the due course of 3 hours. There are 2 sections. The entire test is divided into 2 sections. One is section A with 40 questions and section B with 41 questions. And you get about 5 minutes break in middle. You cannot move before the break is there. You cannot move after the break is there. You have to be on your workstation, on your seat, focusing on the exam. And if in case you need an off, the timer will not stop. The timer of the examination will not stop. If you want to take a bio break, or if you want to pick up your coffee or tea or anything else, you can go and do that, but you cannot stop the examination once it starts. Your timer starts and your timer doesn't stop before the break. The total test duration is 3 hours, which is 180 minutes. But for the non-native American English speakers, there is one extra hour given for us to read those questions nicely. As of now, this test is available in 11 languages and 3 languages are work in progress. So I think in due course of time from now, in a certain stipulated time, we will have this test in 14 languages. 14 or 16, maybe. I think it's 14. I'll recorrect this data on the slide. It's 14 languages as of now, which is available. Now, out of these 81 questions, only 68 questions are going to be marked, which means your score evaluation will only happen on 68 questions. All 81 questions will not get you a score. In each form of the test, there are 13 questions. 81 minus 68 is 13. There are 13 questions which ICF has included in this examination for testifying purpose, which means every form copy that you're going to attempt, every coach will have 13 questions, which are going to be new questions or untested questions for which Team ICF is collecting a robust data and analyzing to rechange the questions or to, quickly replace some of the questions and do all those stuff. So continuous testing is happening with each examination. So only 68 questions will be marked to evaluate your score. Each question and each option of the question has a weighted scale average between 200 to 600, which means depending upon the intensity of the question, there are some questions which are extremely tough. There are some questions that are extremely easy. Now, depending upon the time needed to answer that question, depending upon the complexity of the scenario, depending upon the complexity of the language used in the scenario or in the options, ICF has given a different intensity. So there can be a question which holds 1 point for a right answer, but you may get 6 points for that right answer. There can be a question which holds 1 point for a right answer, and you can only get 2 points for the right answer. So by that logic, the total of the examination goes up to 600 marks, and any candidate to qualify needs 416 marks, which is around 76.7% that you need to get to qualify your test. There are cases which are coming right now, which we are observing as an organization, as Butterfly Coaching Academy, which we are also observing, where people are able to reach to a point of 458, 456, 454. And it has been quite disappointing for them because they just couldn't cross the mark of 460 by a couple of marks. So this is happening. I'm just bringing it to your notice because this test is because of the weighted average. There is a some bit of trickiness that happens in the test which we cannot really anticipate, and we cannot determine of how much can we score. Yeah, you may go for a 540 out of 600 or a 550 out of 600, and you may end up landing at 450 out of 600 or 455 out of 600. So it needs a robust preparation. It needs a robust preparation. It needs a continuous preparation, continuous deeper understanding, continuous practice to understand the nature of the question and the nature of the answer. Pearson's has been tied up. Collaboration has been done with Pearson's online and test center VUE. Online is Pearson's allow you to appear for this test within your home. So they have a testing team. They're going to test your room. They're going to test your environment. They're going to test your camera placements, and they're going to test your workstations and everything. And there'll be one person completely closely monitoring you for those 3 hours or 4 hours till the time you appear for the test at your home through the online technology. But if you don't want to actually do it and risk it at your home, you can also go to the nearest Pearson center, block your time, and you can reach the center, and the center will provide you everything: the workstation, the computer, the environmental basic needs that you require actually will be given to you by the Pearson. So these two options are there. Nobody can take this test without being proctored. Whether you get proctored, whether you get under a camera surveillance inside your home, or whether you get a camera surveillance outside your home, choice is yours. But you cannot attempt this examination without being totally observed. Yeah. I recently went to Pearson Center. It was completely jammed with several cameras from all angles. They didn't allow my bag to be taken. They allowed me a locker. Uh, they allowed me to take a water bottle, which is transparent in color, which can be seen if there's something inside or no. They checked my pockets, they checked my wallets and everything. And uh, I think for even a single second, they didn't allow me to look here or look there or do anything else here. So whenever I needed a break, I used to raise my hand, or whenever I wanted to drink some water, I used to raise my hand. And in 3 seconds, a person used to enter the room and used to support me. But they are observing you. So this is very important. And this is one of the core reasons, this is one of the core intentions to build an external credibility of the exam. This exam is as good as any competitive exam in your country or any competitive exam globally. Now, this is an interesting data. I don't know how many of you are aware of this data. This data actually gives you a lot of depth of what you need to study and how you need to study. Now, ICF, this examination has included all the 8 competencies. So if you see, all the 4 domains are there: foundation, co-creating the relationship, communicating effectively, and cultivating learning and growth. And every competence has been given an equal score almost. So if you see core competency number 1, which is demonstrates ethical practice, 13% questions are going to be formulated from that competency. Now, if you see 13%, 12%, 12%, 13%, 13%, 12, 13, 12. Now, this means you do not just need to focus on the first 2 competencies from a theoretical understanding. You also need to practice the remaining competencies from a theoretical understanding. So listening actively is no more just a practical understanding competency. It has to be understood theoretically as well. If you do not really understand the sub pointers of this competency, like listening actively or like evoking awareness, then it will be very difficult for you to take that decision during the examination. Because in examination, they'll be giving you a scenario and there will be 4 choices, which I'll explain. I have some sample questions. I have picked up a few questions from the sample questions and I've disseminated them, which I'll explain in due course of time. But if you're not very well read, so like, there is a competency which says 5.5. Core competency number 5 is maintains presence, and 5.5 says a coach should be capable of going into the space of unknown. there is a competency 6.5. Competency 6 is listening actively. 6.5 says a coach should be able to attend and notice the non-verbal communication of the client. Now, these competencies should be in your system very subconsciously, and then it becomes easy for you to really understand that question and find the right answer. So each competency is given an equal weightage here. The entire 68 questions that are going to be scored in your case or in anyone's case will be divided in this competency. So you can assume, so 68 is almost about 8 questions from each competency. 8 to 9 questions, depending upon, will fall from every single competency. Why it is important to know, I'll explain in due course of time. That is something which is new. This is an interesting slide. Now, any questions so far? You can ask your question in the chat box. I can't see the chat box right now, but probably you
I
can
think there
write
is
down the
one
question.
question. Let me
Yeah,
just read it for you in the chat box. I
sure.
would like to ask about from Diana. I would like to ask about the thinking behind some, what is it? Thinking behind some of the questions, words, answer choices, especially for the ICF exam practice question 4, 5, and 7.
I'll answer
If
that
it's-
question then. Let me come to that part of the. Let me just demystify how these scenarios are built and how these choices are built and how do we really consider kind of eliminating the wrong choices rather than just choosing the right choices. I'll explain and probably I'll then demystify it for you. And if not answered during my explanation, then probably we'll take this question again in the due course. Hope that's fine. If that's fine, you can write down one okay for us to move ahead.
Yeah. Yes.
Great.
Thank you, Diana.
So now, thank you, Dana. So this is an interesting. Now I'm moving from why this exam to what has changed in this exam. What is the exam construct? Now I'm moving a bit more into the item format. Item format means the question format. Item is the word which is used for the question here. This is something that I have explicitly created for this webinar. It's a realistic scenario which is presented as a question. At the first place, the nature of the question is not just an ordinary question. This question is not going to be a bookish question. This question is going to be a real life coaching scenario. So a realistic scenario is presented as a question which will have 4 responses. Candidate will be required to choose one best and one worst among the 4 choices. So all 4 choices will be the same. Out of those 4 choices, there'll be 2 columns. You'll have to pull the best option in the best cell and the worst option in the worst column, in the worst cell. What is the intent of using realistic scenario? Now, the intent why ICF wanted a coach to actually read a real-time scenario rather than just reading a competency question, which was the part of CKA. ICF wants to observe what are you noticing in the question. It's not just the answer that is important. To find the answer, the best answer and the worst answer, it is very important that you pay attention and notice the question pretty clearly. And ICF wants to observe whether your ability to notice the scenario pretty well with respect to the competency is coming or no. Are you very clear with respect to the competency in the scenario in which the competency is falling? This is one of the intention. That is the reason why ICF wanted to use realistic scenarios. How do coaches synthesize and use what is presented? Now, this is decision making. You know what competency says what. Core competency number 3 says that a coach should be able to form an agreement with the relevant stakeholders, with the relevant parties, with the client. Coach must be able to do a compatibility check with the client. That knowledge is there, but what you're going to use from that knowledge is something that ICF wants to actually see. And ICF wants you to take a decision of every single question. All these 81 line items are reflecting one competency. Any competency. So your question number 5 may be from competency number 7. Your question number 7 may be from competency number 1. Your question number 21 may be from competency number 3. Now you have to really know what is the competency on which the scenario is based and what kind of an answer has to be lived into. Now this is the intention, and this is also the key to appear for the exam. If you know this pretty well, if you practice this pretty well, then your chances of qualifying the examination are going to be higher not because you're practicing this, but you're becoming the person. You're becoming a coach in the process. Your ability to identify a scenario and basically uh, categorize that scenario into the right competency is the only art of preparing yourself as a better coach. And once you become that better coach, your ability to appear for any scenario and examination multi-fold increase. And that's the intent. No, ICF doesn't want you to go through a tough examination because they believe in that people who are tough have to go through tough examination. No, that's not. Intent is, are you able to read the questions nicely? Are you able to notice what competencies are showing up? Are you able to really take those decisions right with your knowledge? Is knowledge sufficient, or your ability to leverage that knowledge is also sufficient? Both the tangents are coming. Intent of two choices. Why two choices? Now, why a best answer and why a worst answer? Why best answer alone was not enough? No, there are many organizations still, not just in the world of coaching, but globally, you see, they do not use both the dimensions in one question. But ICF has integrated these two dimensions. So you do not just choose what's right, you also choose what's not right. Because psychology says if you really read the first sub point, to decide what not to do is not same as to decide what to do. I know what I need to do. It doesn't mean that I also know what I don't need to do. They both are different dimensions of human understanding. You may know what you need to do, but you may still not know what you don't need to do. Now, ICF specifically says a coach, when practices as an external coach or an internal coach, must pay attention to both the tangents. You know what you need to do. You need to form an agreement. Great, you know that. But you cannot break privacy. You must know that. You will not harm anyone's intentions. You must know that. You're not going to harm your client's respect. You're not going to harm your client's integrity. You do not do that. That is explicitly important. Just knowing that you need to form agreement is not enough. You must know what you should not do. If there is something which is interesting for me, if there is something which is beneficial for me, should I do that? ICF says a coach must be capable enough to know this, what they cannot do. Now, hence, the best option and the worst option. Both are required for you to be a global cadre coach. Somebody who's highly ethical, somebody who's highly competent. Now, that is the reason why the new credentialing exam. There's one more word which is written here, plausibility. I'm sure some of you who have gone through various webinars which ICF has conducted or any other chapter webinars, plausibility. Now, plausibility is an important clause which is integrated into this examination. Plausibility is basically something which can confuse a human mind. Your ability to take the right decision actually gets into a confusing state because of the plausibility factor. Because the art of choosing between the right and the right is difficult. The art of choosing between the right and the wrong is easy. But the art of choosing between two righteous things is very difficult, of which one is more right over the other one. Now, that is where the complexity of decision making comes in this exam. And the name that they have named this technique is called as situational judgment test. So these are the four tangents that ICF has inculcated in terms of forming every line item, every question. They want to test your knowledge, ability, that stays there from the old CK. They want to check your plausibility factor. How are you going to respond to a situation which is equally effective or equally ineffective? They both are like in equal standards. Either they both seem to be right or they both seem to be wrong. Now, what will you do in this situation? How will you make sure that your competency, knowledge, and your practice allows you to choose what's more right than less right? Now, it's between more right and less right. It's not between right and wrong. In CK, there were only 4 options, and you were supposed to choose only the right answer. So you could really make it out pretty easy, and that's one of the reasons why that became an easier version of the test, which was needing this whole refreshment of the examination. More nuanced than simple right wrong questions. Yeah. Again, the factor of plausibility. More nuanced. everything is not so easy in the coaching world. Coaching scenarios are not easy. Client problems are not easy. So you cannot have a black and white approach in coaching. You cannot really just determine whether it is possible or not possible. There is always a middle path. There's always a gray scale, and that gray scale is considered to be used in this testing mechanism for you to again be evaluated on your ability to notice the gray scale, your ability to notice what's, you know, in India, we have this rule that you cannot use your mobile phones while driving. Yeah, I think it's a global principle as well. You should not use your mobile phones while you're driving, and you should also wear your seat belts when you're driving, and you should also never drive under any influence of any drug or alcohol or any sort of drug. You should not do that. Not the both, all three of them are wrong. All three of them are absolutely what you can say, uh, abide by the law. Which one will cause you more dent? Which one is more intensive in nature? Which one can cause more damage? If you're using your mobile phone while driving, if you're not wearing your seatbelt while driving, or if you are under the influence of alcohol or any medical drug that you should not take, which one can cause more damage is something that has to come from your human judgment. That cannot just come from your understanding of breaking the law. So this is what is built in the whole examination. Require judgments and decision making, like coaching itself. In coaching, you have to take situational judgments. As a coach, you cannot just do a straight jacket job. As a coach, you cannot just say step number 1, 2, 3, 4. As a coach, you are there in that space with the client. Now, this is a factor which is inbuilt into the exam. It doesn't restrict only to the conversation now, it gets inside the exam. ICF is going to observe your ability to hold the situation as good as you're holding it for your client during the examination time. Now, you need to be a coach, not just a student appearing for an examination. Until unless you wear the hat of a coach, you'll not be able to comprehend the questions right, assimilate those questions right, and there are chances that probably you may select the right answer, but you may not select the best right answer. Yeah. There's a difference between selecting what's right and selecting what's the best right. Yeah. That's the difference that I want to leave to you to probably practice and evaluate. Now, I have tried to make this slide in a little easier way to explain the four things here. It's very easy to choose between what's right and wrong. Very, very easy. A little moderate is to choose between what's right and what's good. It's a very moderate. So in this role, we need ethics. It's good for me to source the business from the client by hiding an information. But is it right to hide an information and still source the business? Now, ICF is very, very peculiar now. If you go and read the ethics, the code of ethics and the insights and considerations for ethics, the reflective statements, ICE document, which I'm going to provide you all through mail to Hada, and you can take from her and probably you can read. It's very difficult to choose between what's good for me, and right. Now, a coach should be able to choose between what's good and what's right. Yeah. The toughest is to choose between the right and the right, or the wrong and the wrong. Is the toughest game. How do I choose between two rights? How do I choose between two wrongs? That's very, very difficult for me to choose between the two rights and the two wrongs. That is where my understanding of competency, ethics, and my practice is going to play a critical role. So just reading a competency or going through a coach training program is not an assurance for you to be able to qualify for a credentialing exam. You need to understand the psychology behind the examination, the science behind the examination, the expectation that ICF has, the expectation that not only ICF has, but all the global bodies who are going to recognize coaching in next 10 years have as an expectation. They want their coaches to produce results. They want their coaches to be ethical. They want their coaches to be professional. They want these things from these coaches in full capacity. So coaches need to be really trained, really tested, so that when they go out in the world, they're fully prepared to take every challenge heads on. So that is where the role is. So this is all about situational judgment is. Now let's consider, I've noted down few very simple passive scenarios for your brain to work. You can please participate. A manager abused his employee and the employee slapped the manager as a response. Which one is wrong? Or which one is more wrong? You guys can answer this question in the chat box. I can't see the chat box, but probably Hada can see. A manager abused his employee and the employee slapped the manager as a response. According to you, for a minute, even if we come out of the ICF core competencies hat, and as a human being, you have to tell me which one is worse of the worst. Employee is more wrong. Both are wrong. Manager is more wrong as they are in greater position of power. Both are wrong. Which one is more wrong? Both are wrong. This scenario is completely wrong. And thank you everyone for participating. They both are wrong. But which one is more wrong? Now, this is a discretion that is going to come from you. I'm not here to prove you right or wrong here and to prove myself right or wrong here. I'm here to only give you the situation for your brain to work. Yeah. Employee wrong more, no? Some people are saying employee wrong more. Some people are saying manager wrong more because he used the position of authority very wrong. No, look at it. Look at it, the situation. Manager abused the employee and employee slept back. Okay. Manager had alternatives to communicate. Instead of using abusive language, manager would have done something else. Okay. Employee also had alternatives. Instead of taking an action in hand or instead of getting into a physical action, the employee would have reported it to their manager's manager or would have recorded it on the written document that this has happened. Now, how you take that action will make that action a worse action, or both are worse, but here in this case, employee's action of getting into a physical mode becomes even more wrong. Yeah. If somebody is abusing you, you can escalate the matter. If you see somebody doing a fraud within the organization, what you're going to do? You're going to stop that person? Try. You're going to hit that person because he's doing some fraud, or you're going to report it to the management or report it to the right people. No, this is plausibility. This is scientific plausibility. This is basically psychological possibility. What are you seeing? What are you noticing? And how are you responding to what you're noticing? It has to come from your ability, not just to understand the competencies, but to understand what is there in front of you. What are you seeing right now? Yeah. Now, again, one more simple scenario. I'm using it from the coaching point of view, and I've made these scenarios. Pardon me, forgive me if there is something that may be, wrong here because it's a cross-cultural webinar that we are holding right now. So our intention is not to really, really hurt anyone's emotions here, but do let us know if any corrections need to be done from your cultural standpoint of view. A coach is disappointed and upset with the choice of the client, or the coach shouted back at the client. Now you choose, I'm leaving it to you. Notice the client and ignore, or notice the client and tell. Which one is more wrong? Notice the client, you notice the pattern in the client, you noticed a pause by the client, you noticed the client and you ignored what you noticed, you noticed the client and you told you told the client with some solution, or you advised something to the client. You saw a client just taking a small pause while talking and he said, why don't you have a glass of water? Which one is more wrong?
Can I?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone. I mean, I cannot. I mean, you can try, and we are not judging these answers right now. This is only for your brain to open and see how plausibility works. Yeah, Hada, you're saying something, or you've written something
Yes,
there?
Ignore is better.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think somebody's saying something. I can hear
Yeah,
someone is
ignore is better.
yes, because as a coach we cannot give advice. So number two, I think ignore is less than giving
Ignore is also
advice.
wrong. Telling is also
Yes.
wrong. Telling is more wrong because it is judgmental in nature. If you are telling something to the client, it is coming from your judgment of the client, which is totally no. Ignoring is still not fatal, but telling is totally fatal. If you tell something for the client to do, it's completely fatal. It's mentoring, basically. You're mentoring the client. Now, the methodology changes. Yeah, I think, Kanika, you were saying something as I heard your voice. Notice the client. So ignorance is still okay, though it's worse. Don't do it. But in comparison of telling, telling is even worse. Getting disappointed and upset with the client is worse. You should not be disappointed or you should not be upset. I think the core competency number 1.2 or 4.3 says that coach should be able to govern their emotions pretty well and should prepare themselves before going for the session. You can be disappointed still, but you should never shout back on the client of something that they have not done. Now, shouting on the client becomes a worst option over getting disappointed. Now, this is how you start. This is the basic level. The questions are much tougher than this level, but this is just one level for you to right now, just understand of how the test is designed, how the scenario is designed. Good to reach on time. Now, these are statements I'm just leaving for you to understand here. Good to reach on time, but it is not right to drive fast or jump the red light. Just because you wanted to reach on time, you should break the law, you should break the rule, you should not do that. Now, between the good and the right, you always choose the right, not what is good. Between the good and the right, you should always choose the right. And this doesn't just apply for this test. If you see it in life, between good, the taste of the food, and right, the health from the food, you always tend to choose what's right that you should eat. Everything seems to be good, which has a lot of fat, but everything seems to be right, which has less fat. Now, I'm just saying it from my understanding to elaborate a bit more here. Good to share the information for the public good. Not right to breach the privacy otherwise. Yeah. Now this is a sentence. This is an expression that comes from ethics. So if I am coaching somebody in Kuwait and Kuwait laws ask me to submit something that I observed about the client because there is a criminal offense that has happened in the recent times and they wanted me to know, when I have to share that information with the authorities for a reason, then it's not a breach of contract. But if I just share it with otherwise that I have a client from Kuwait, that's not right. So between good and right, you have to choose very consciously. Good to lose any sort of benefit, not right to hide and protect. Now, these are the second and the third are two scenarios which I experienced while I was appearing for the examination, were foundation of many questions. The coaches were given a kind of a kind of a web in which you were given a good option and the right option. And sometimes the nature says that you go with the good option and not with the right option, and that's where you commit a mistake. So it's good, but you choose right. What is right here? This is again for you to understand. I'm not just boiling down to. I am sure that I'm not taking too much of time and I'm not sounding boring here. I hope you're enjoying this session so far. We are coming to the last part of the session, which is what to master. Only 4 documents are there to master. There are only 4 documents, and you must have read it multiple times during your coach training sessions, during your mentoring sessions, and everything like that. The first document, the primary document, is the Code of Ethics. 28 points divided into 4 subsections: responsibility to self, responsibility to others, responsibility to society, responsibility to clients. Everything is written there, 28 points. The first, responsibility towards the clients, is 13 points. Then 6 points, responsibility towards uh, practice, responsibility towards. So there are total 28 points. This ICF Code of Ethics has a sub-document. It's a new document. It's called as ICE, Insights and Considerations for Ethics. This document explains every single thing which is written in that ethics. So once you go through that ethics document thoroughly, you pick up this document. This is a little more, what you can say, comprehensive in nature, more detailed document, specifying the scenarios of how ethics are going to work. This will give you absolute depth of understanding every single ethics, and you might draw what is permissible, what is not permissible. And you need to really know both. If you know only half what is permissible or what you must do, then the remaining half is going to dent. Yeah, because the remaining half carries weightage. The remaining half, which means I need to form an agreement with the client. Absolutely, yes. But I cannot just form a verbal agreement with the client, because a verbal agreement in India may be allowed, but a verbal agreement in Kuwait is not allowed. I need to consider what's right and what's not right every time I show a competency. Now, these two documents, Code of Ethics, Insights, and Considerations, if you have them, please do them. If you don't have them, let us know. I'm going to be sharing it with Ada on a separate email, which can be forwarded to everybody. The remaining two documents are ICF core competencies, the detailed version of it, which is published in 2019. It's available on ICF's website. If you want, you can take it from me or anybody from the chapter as well. No matter whether you are an ACC level coach or a PCC level coach or an MCC level coach, you must read the PCC markers. That's advisable. The 37 points mentioned in the PCC markers are extensions of competency only, but they allow you to see those competencies from different dimensions. Now, that again helps you open up your mind. No more reading is required. And I am not just telling you because I think so. I'm telling you from my personal experience of preparing. I invested about 3.5, 4 days to completely do this. I have tested it. I have created a one-pager. I have researched it. I have formulated this step, and I found that if a person religiously go ahead, spend time with these 4 things and practice a bit more of coaching, practice a bit more of coaching, I think less is more. Do not go for more and more and more and more and more and more. That's going to overburden you and going to create more confusion. It's going to impact your presence. Rather, work on your presence more. Yeah, I'm going to show you how you work on your presence more in such a scenario. So less is more, always keep in mind. Yeah, ICF is not asking you anything from Jupiter. ICF is not asking you anything from Mars. ICF is not asking you anything from Sun. ICF is only asking you everything which ICF has published. And there are no documents more intense than these 4 documents, trust you me. I've been into this journey in this walk from past 6.5, 7 years. We are now an ICF accredited organization, and we have been training coaches. We have been working intensively around building up the need of coaching. So I can tell you that if you focus and pay attention on these documents more and more repeatedly, that's going to help you more rather than having a wide variety of documents to read through. This is how the screen looks like. Yeah, this is there. This is how the screen looks like. This is the question number 2 or 3 in the sample question, which is written, which I'll disseminate in a few minutes from now. You have to drag either of the A, B, C, Ds, which you think is the best answer into the best cell and the worst into the worst cell. You have to drag them, and that's how you work. Roughly for non-English, non-Native American English speakers like me, who got 4 hours for the examination. So I roughly got about 2.5, 3 minutes for one question. So if you divide 240 minutes by 81 questions, you roughly get about 3 minutes in your hand to attempt. For me, more than 50% questions I could answer in 1 minute. For me, more than 50% of my questions I could answer in 1 minute, and around remaining 50%, 50% of the remaining 50% I could answer in about 1.5, 2 minutes. So there is one thing that I would leave you, and I'll give you that as a tip that you need to practice upon. You see the size of the question. The size of the question is also to be considered when you're practicing your examination. Sample exam questions which are given on the ICF website, 8 questions which are given on the ICF website. I assume most of you have seen those questions. Most of you who you're preparing would have gone through those questions, but right now I have tried my best to disseminate how do you read that question. This is the question number 1, which is given on the ICF website as sample questions. And trust you me, the kind of questions that are going to be showing up in the examination is almost very close to this, very equivalent to the nature of this question. The words will be different, scenarios will be different, but the nature of the question will be the same. A coach is meeting with a prospective client who's growing a new business. The coach and potential client quickly establish an easy connection. The coach is excited about the opportunity to work with the client. As the coach and client are ending their conversation, the prospective client briefly mentions the name of their new business. The coach recognizes the business, as the coach is an investor in a more established competitive business in the same community. What should the coach do? Not say anything. Try to keep their role as an investor in a competing business separate from their role as a coach. Share that the business name sounds familiar and make a mental note to determine whether it is a competitive business later in that evening. Share that role as an investor in the competitive business only if the potential client follows up to pursue coaching with a coach. Share their role as an investor in competing business and acknowledge the possibility of a conflict. Now, if you'll stay here for a minute, these answers will start sounding a bit confusing here. You might not find it very easy to choose which one is right. However, your consciousness or your gut will tell you. Your intuition will tell you which one is right, which one is wrong. Do not follow your intuition blindly. Do not follow your intuitions blindly. Yeah, because your intuitions might mark the good answer faster than marking the right answer. Stay there, spend some more time, and consider, ask yourself. Now, what needs to be observed when we are reading the question? And this is something that I learn on the go, which I'm disseminating right now. What needs to be observed? What do I really need to do with the question? This question belongs to which competency? When you're reading the question, ask yourself which competency the question belongs to. This question belongs to the competency number 1, which is demonstrate ethical practice. So whenever you are reading a question, step number 1 that you really need to focus and attempt, ICF wants you to do that, to identify which competency the question is coming from. Yeah. Whether coach should be ethically conveying or not. Can anyone open the competency charter? Do you have the ICF updated competency PDF? Can you read core competency number 1.1 for me? Can anyone do that? 1.1. What core competency number 1.1 says? You want me to do that? Let me do it. Allow me 10 seconds. Core competency number 1.1 says what? Now read it very carefully. Core competency number 1 says demonstrates ethical practice. The coach is the one who demonstrates ethical practice, understands and consistently applies coaching ethics and standards of coaching. Now, what core competency number 1.1 says? Demonstrates personal integrity. Personal integrity. The word is not integrity. The word is personal integrity and honesty in interactions with clients. Honesty with interactions with clients. So core competency number 1.1 says a coach should demonstrate personal integrity and honesty. What is honesty? And what is the difference between the word integrity and honesty? Integrity is my actions meet my words. I do what I say. That's integrity. Honesty is when the actions and the words match. Honesty is I did this and I'm confronting it that I did this. Honesty is communicating what you did, and integrity is doing what you communicate. I said a lie to you and I'm confronting I said a lie to you. This is honesty. You did something and you're confronting it. That's honesty. Integrity is I'm not going to lie to you ever, and you then never lie. When your actions meet your words are preceding your actions and your actions are succeeding your words, you match them, it's integrity. I'm going to do this forever in my life and you do it, that's integrity, even if nobody's watching you. But when you do something and you communicate with honesty is when you communicate the same thing. I lied it, and you confront it. Now that's honesty. Whether you actually are asked or no, you're still honest. Whether somebody asked you or no, you're still honest. Yeah, a student who bunked the school came back in the afternoon and told his mother that, Mama, today I did not go to school and I'm so sorry for that. That's honesty. Nobody asked me to do that. I did it myself. Now that's personal integrity with honesty. When you're not asked and you still do it. When you're not asked and you still do it, no, you can easily hide that information. Nobody's asking you. The coach has only, the client has only shared that information. The client has not asked you. Personal integrity means you will not wait for the client to ask from you. If you saw something not so right, your personal integrity and honesty should be forefront. It should be forefront. Nothing should come in between your personal integrity and your honesty. That's ethics. That is the key to ethics. Now, that is something that you need to consider. and reflect back while you're reading the question, which competency, which sub-competency. Oh, this is coming in. Now, these two aspects, if you're able to do, you're able to absolutely make a rocking performance in exam. This understanding is very critical for identifying the best and the worst. Now, you see, I have marked the best answer here. It is marked on the website as well. You can go back. Coach is meeting with a prospective client who's growing a new business. Now, you've read the question. Now, share their role as an investor in the competitive business only if the potential client follows, or share the role as an investor if a competing business and acknowledge the possibility of conflict beforehand, before even asked. Which one seems to be better? The competency says personal integrity and honesty. That becomes better. And the worst answer is not say anything, trying to hide. Try to keep their role as an investor in a competing business separate from their role as a coach. No, you cannot keep it as separate because you're dealing with the same client and a competitor of the same client. It may have a conflict. The information that the client is going to disseminate. So if there is a chance of a conflict arising, it has to be addressed. Now, just one competency understanding and one sub-competency understanding can refine the way you notice the question, you read the question, and you leverage the knowledge. You remember all those 3 points that we just now discussed? If you see the second part, intent of using a realistic scenario to observe what the coach notices, how the coach synthesize and use what is presented, and what competencies at the core. Now, that is the intention of giving you a realistic scenario. And this is what we are learning here in terms of just demystifying this question. Yeah, okay. Now, I would like to invite you all to read this. Take a minute, read the question nicely, and notice which competency is coming into play, which sub-competency is coming to play. If you want to refer it right now, read the competency charter, please do that. But identify right now which competency is coming into play and which sub-competency you think is coming into play right now. Read this question nicely and try to select which one is your right answer, your best answer, and your worst answer. Just give it a try. Take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, because the examination hall is going to give you about 3 minutes average for one question. You can choose to write in the chat box so that we can read. You can choose to ignore. That's completely your choice. We respect it completely. I'll wait for a minute and then I'll move forward in the logic. Which competency it seems, which sub-competency it is referring to? Can some of you answer? Please try. You can unmute yourself and speak as well. It's a dialogue that we're having. Number 2 is best. Okay, you're giving an answer. Which competency it is, Diana? If you can just tell me which competency you think the question is coming from.
I believe
Right
it's
now, just
excuse me.
yeah.
Please, I
Diana.
believe it's should I say it? Okay, I believe it's maintaining the coaching mindset.
Let's go competency number 2, which is embodying a coaching mindset. Okay. Thank you, Diana. If I'm pronouncing your name right, I'm sorry for any wrong pronunciations tonight. Absolutely right. CC2 embodies a coaching mindset. Now you see the sub-competencies. 2.1 says acknowledges that clients are responsible for their own choices, and 2.6 that develops and maintains the ability to regulate one's emotions. Yeah, they both are falling into place. Now, if you consider them both in your mind while you're reading the question and you demystify these two tangents, these two dimensions, you'll be able to read the question, write, assimilate the question, right, notice, identify the knowledge that you have for the competencies and the ethics, and then leverage that knowledge, okay, to identify. The second is the best answer, and fourth is the wrong answer. Now, if you see a small bracket after the question mark in the question, there's a number written 98. There is a number written 98. If you see in the first question also, I wrote down this number 82, and it's 98 right now. This 98 represents the number of words each question has. Now, the number of words average in every question is around 100, 125. That can go up to 150, 175. I went back while I was preparing, and this is a point that I picked up. A human mind average reads about 100 words in 30 seconds. 100 to 120 words in 30 seconds. So ideally, out of those 3 minutes that you have, if you're appearing for this examination in English, out of those 3 minutes that you have, you only need 30 seconds to read this question. So what you really need to do when you're preparing for the examination is read more and read faster. Read more and read faster. Try to tune your reading to 30 seconds, 150 words. 40 seconds, 150 words. Now that ability to read the question in 40 seconds is going to give you an advantage to read the answers nicely. So just imagine if you have 3 minutes to answer one question, 45 seconds goes to reading the question, 45 seconds goes to evaluating which competency and which subcontent. So 1.5 minutes goes in terms of reading the question, identifying the competency, and remaining 1.5 minutes you have for reading the answers and choosing the best and the worst over choosing the best and the worst or the best and the good or anything else, the plausibility factor. Now, this is something that came from my experience, which I'm just sharing for everyone to go and get it. Before going to the remaining questions, I'm not going to demystify all the questions like this. You can take your time, read through and demystify them. But there are these two things that I felt you must also know while you're preparing for this exam. So now what you need to pay attention beyond these 4 documents and the reading habit and the faster reading habit and the ability to identify the competency and the subcompetency is your ability to search and focus these words in the questions. Always seek these words in the questions and the answers. Try and pick up the word ask, focus on the client, seek curiosity, see where is transparency being observed in the answer, and acknowledge word coming in. Pick up these words. While you're selecting an answers, focus on these words and try to avoid these words. Tell, teach, remind, recommend, advise, lead. Now, in many cases, not in all, not in very serious complex questions, but in many cases, your ability to read the question right, identify the competency, and eliminate these words is going to really help you find the fast answer and the best answer, the best answer in a little faster way. If you're able to really train your mind that, because if you see these words are prohibited in the competencies. These words reflect different modality. These words reflect training. These words reflect mentoring. These words reflect other forms of the psychological part of different modalities. What coaching represents is the asking, focusing on the client, not on the coach. Focusing completely on the client, not on the coach. What the client wants, not the coach wants. Is the coach absolutely reflecting curiosity? If I am the client here, so if I'm reading the question and I am the client, what would I want? Ask yourself, center yourself as a client in the question. You'll be able to find the right answer because your intuition will come, your knowledge will come, your understanding of plausibility will come. You will not fall in the trap of the good and the right, or the wrong and the wrong, or the right and the right. Yeah. Acknowledge. The word acknowledge is very, very powerful. And if you'll see acknowledge word coming in multiple times, your ability to pick attention words increases sharply there. Yeah. Anybody who would like to take up the question number 3 here? How much time do we have? I don't know. I'm not able to track the course of time. I think we are on time. I'm going to be sending this presentation to Hada. You can see it a bit later as well. Now you see 49 words. Right answer, wrong answer marked very clearly. Now you see this question, 137 words. This question may seem to be very big in size, but actually it's 137 words, which is well below a human mind's understanding to read in 30 seconds. Yeah, don't get confused. Don't get worked up. Large questions, big questions. How will I read? What will I do? Practice. Before appearing for the exam, practice. I'm skipping these questions for the... Yes, Diara, you have a question?
Yes, so would you mind going through the reasoning of the worst answer in the previous one and the biomedical research person?
Sure.
So what I had chosen is ask the client if they would summarize the entries. And the reasoning behind that is because they already are exhibiting some social anxiety. And so it seemed that asking them to summarize would put them on the spot. But the right answer for the worst one is ask the client to identify some steps, which I can see also is wrong, but I'm not clear why that one is worse.
I'll explain. Would anyone want to try and explain this to all of us? Why option number 2 is not a right answer, though it seems to be a right answer. Now, this is the real factor. This is where we tend to communicate wrong or make a mistake, and that's perfectly fine. Ask the client. So let us read the question once. Let's stay here for a minute. Let us read the question once, and you all can think of a justification in your mind. A university biomedical researcher is working with a coach to improve their interactions with colleagues. The client is a very analytical thinker. The client is a very analytical thinker and can easily explain detailed data points and complex drafts, but seems reluctant to share anything personal with the coach. In previous sessions, the coach encouraged the client to describe how they felt at social events, but the client seems highly uncomfortable, answering only with a short one-word response. When the client arrives to their session today, the client silently hands the coach a journal. The client has written several detailed entries over the last week about their experience attending a university luncheon, a faculty party, staff development, workshop since their last session. While the client says little to the coach in the moment, their entries show deep reflections about the anxiety the client experienced at these events and their desire to overcome social anxiety. What should the coach do? Which core competency it is? Which core competency do you think the question is coming from? Okay, let me demystify. Let us read the options first. Acknowledge the reflection work the client has done and ask the client if they feel comfortable exploring some of the emotions they described in their journal. Ask the client if they would summarize the entries they detailed in the journal for the coach. Ask the client to identify some steps they can take to overcome the anxieties they wrote about. Ask the client what new awareness they developed about themselves through the journaling process. Yeah. So which ones you think are the 2 right ones and which ones you think are the 2 wrong ones? All of you. Which ones you think are the right ones and which ones you think are the wrong ones? Ask the client what new awareness they developed about themselves through the journaling process, and acknowledge the reflection work the client has done and ask the client if they feel comfortable exploring some of them.
Maybe the right one, 1 and 4.
Right ones are 1 and 4. Option number 1 and option number 4 are emerging to be the 2 right options. Option number 2 and option number 3 are emerging to be the 2 wrong ones. Let me explain. Let me just change my screen. Let me come to the competency charter and let's read the core competency number 4. What the core competency number says, partners with the client to create a safe, supportive environment that allows the client to share freely. Allows the client to share freely. Now, here in this case, the client is not feeling free to share. The client is responding only in one word, which means the client is not able to find trust and safety, and hence the client wrote everything in the next session and came. That was safer for the client to do rather than speaking. So it is establishment of trust and safety, cultivating trust and safety, which is core competency number 4, maintains a relationship of mutual respect and trust. Seeks to understand the client within their context, which may include their identity, environment, experience, values, and beliefs. Diana, pay attention. Yeah. Point number 2, 4.2. Read it very carefully. Demonstrate. What it says? Demonstrate respect for the client's identity, perceptions, style, and language, and adapts one's coaching to the client. Yeah. Now, 4.2 says demonstrate respect for the client's identity, perceptions, style, and language, and adapts one's coaching to the client. Now, if we go to option number 2, which seemingly right to you, what the coach is doing here? What the coach is doing when the coach is asking the client if they would summarize the entries they detailed in the journal for the coach.
Pushing him to do something. He's not respecting
Pushing?
the.
Not respecting.
Right.
So if you see, they are pushing the client to do something. Now, when they're pushing the client to do something, the client has done a whole lot of written work and they are neglecting that written work. They're neglecting that style. They're not paying attention to that. It's very insensitive for the coach to be unempathetic to the client. The coach is not paying attention to what the client has done. The coach is not acknowledging. Rather, coach is asking the client to summarize it for the coach, which means I am not having any time to read all this. Please summarize this all for me. I am ignoring completely the style that the client is adapting. Ideally, as a coach, I need to adapt that style. That's a wrong answer. It's a wrong answer. It may seem to be right, but the competency says that you need to adapt to the client's style rather than you wanting the client to adapt your style. Summarizing it for you means what? You want to tell the client to summarize it for you instead of you paying attention. Now, these are the nuances that are going to pop up when you're going to dive deep into the competencies. So show support, empathy, and concern for the client. So coach could have asked a better question. The coach could have asked, I'm wondering how much of time you would have invested in writing all this. You're concerned for the client's time. You're concerned for the client's, ability not to speak. So I'm wondering, how much of time that you would have invested in writing all this. You acknowledge and support the client's feelings. You read that document for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You acknowledge and support the client's expressions of feelings through his style, through their style. Yeah, you cannot be insensitive towards your clients and ignore their work. Your job as a coach is to adapt to their needs, not to make them adapt to your needs. Now, that makes this answer seemingly right, but a wrong answer. Now, this is the nuance if you start developing over a period of time. It's not just a matter of passing a test, ladies and gentlemen. It's a matter of becoming that coach. It's a matter of embodying that coaching mindset that you and I are expected by such a great body as ICF is. Now, you do that, you do this justification when you really do the deep work in terms of understanding these competencies. Does that address your concern, Diana? Is there any concern that you have? I would love to answer that in the moment.
Yeah, thank you so
This
much.
was-
So, I actually had chosen number 2 as the worst one, but what I was told when I was taking the quiz is that the correct answer is actually number 3. And so are you saying that number 2 is the one? I'm a little confused. So the number 2 is not the correct answer, number 3 is. So why is number 3 the worst answer rather than number 2? Thank you.
So what is the difference? Can anyone tell me to answer the question that Diana is asking between the number 2 and the number 3? Why 3 is worst over number 2? Ask the client
Yes.
to, yeah, please, Shampa,
Yeah,
please.
because the third is more worse because the one is they're asking the client to identify and they're recommending to take some steps. That is also I think it is a advised they are giving, which is not acceptable.
Okay, that's a great what you can say observation that you have. Anything beyond this observation? Because they are still asking you, okay? There is no word that they are telling the client to do something. They're still asking the client to identify some steps. Why identification of some steps for this scenario is absolutely the worst option? Why identifying the steps?
Is it
You
that
can
it's
read the
jumping,
question. Yeah.
is it that it's jumping ahead too much because we haven't actually allowed the client to create awareness and facilitated growth? So is it a matter of sequence?
There is no learning that has happened. There is no learning that has happened. Not sequence, in fact, Diana. It's not just a matter of sequence, but you're right. This is a conversation where the client has expressed their concern right now. Only the expression of the concern has happened. Reflection of the concern or reflective inquiry or asking has not happened at all. And the coach is directly moving towards the core competency number 8, arriving at an action without evoking awareness, without even listening, without even doing any sort of any other thing, which is more important. So the client has not addressed their beliefs, their values, their perceptions. The 5 terms that are written in competencies are, your identity, your environment, your experience, your values and beliefs. Nothing has popped up. Only a written expression has happened. because the client did not find it easy to speak. Now, this moving the client to an actionable step is absolutely no coaching, if you ask me. So between the two worst options, no coaching is the worst option over the previous worst option.
So no coaching is
So
worse than sort of breaking that trust and safety where the client where we're-
absolutely yes. Absolutely yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say that we almost done with the timing. I'm okay
Yeah,
if you wanna
yeah.
sit another 10 minutes, if you guys, but
Yeah.
just to let you know that we almost 1 hour and a half now.
Yeah, so I'm not disseminating the remaining questions here. I'm going to be giving it to Hada. You can take from her if anyone wants to. There's a reference glossary that I've attached here in the last slide that you can really take it up. There's a webinar series on ICF's website that you can go and read through for the credentialing examination. You can pick up some things. However, I have completed and I've leveraged most of it here and simplified it, but you can still go and do that. There's a competency video playlist which is available on YouTube. It's marvelous. Go and listen to it. I did it. I thought I know a lot, but after listening to the videos, I learned a lot new. I realized I learned a lot new, and I will recommend highly to go and listen to both these YouTube links. They're there. I'm open to questions for the next 10 minutes from my side. The webinar on why an ICF examination exam, what has changed, what is enabled, what is totally transformed, and how you should prepare is mostly covered. We are in the process of basically creating more scenarios. So as of now, we have created about 15 scenarios for our own fellow coaches, and we intend to make 50 such scenarios, which are real-time scenarios with a plausibility factor of answers for the coaches to practice more, which we are in the process, which will keep Hada updated about it once the full product is ready. And if some of you would want to really take extra sessions or extra classes, we have a product that Hada is aware about. You can block some time and have a consultation with us. We can help you really dive deep into all these aspects and learn better and become better before you appear for this exam. I'm open to questions. Any questions that you have? There's a small survey, Hada, I would like you to
Yes, I
share.
think Rana, can we have a group photo if you don't mind, if anybody don't mind to open the camera, but if you have an issue, we totally respect. And I will put the form. You just put it. Okay, there is a
Yeah,
form.
I've
If
just
you could
shared
please
this.
just, yeah, I was going to do it. Thank you for that. So if you can just click on the link and evaluate this amazing session. It was amazing. Honestly, I learned a lot personally. It was very informative presentation. I think it will help all those who are preparing for the exam. So please, all of you, if you can open your camera so we can have group photo. Rana, I think Rana is in charge of the photo because I'm not good with taking pictures here. Rana? Okay. Okay, can you complete the form until Rana just take the group photo, please?
Do let us know how we have performed this webinar. It will be
والله I
really
can't
helpful
do
for
it.
us to improve.
I am here.
Rana's back.
Okay,
Okay.
and I am
It's
connected
okay.
from the mobile, not from.
Tell me, how can I do it? And I can do it from here or because I'm not good with technology, guys. طب قولي لي يعني رنا انت عارفة احنا طب how to do it
Okay.
now, please.
Radha, can you do it?
You just tell me how to do it and I will do it. You tell me this where to go. Rana. Sorry guys to keep
Okay.
you late. Just 1 minute and we will almost finished. رنا قولي لي الستبس.
Okay. Okay. لا خلص أخذته. I take
okay.
it. Okay.
Can you take another one just in case?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Thank you all.
3, 2, 1. Exactly.
Thank you so much for inviting and giving us this opportunity to enhance everyone's learning. We're a very small coach training institute right now, accredited for level 1 program. We're submitting a level 2 license program to ICF very soon. And somewhere in October, November, we'll be launching the MCC pilot cohort, first pilot cohort as well. Do let us know if we can be of any help. We believe in, we do not really believe only in terms of developing coaching as a modality until you become a coach. So, we believe in that if you're a great driver, it doesn't matter which vehicle you're driving. Driving is going to be amazing. you become that person, you become that chef, and cooking is a result of it. You become that teacher, teaching is a result of it. So we focus more on making one person become that coach who can coach easily. Yeah. So thank you so much, Hada, for giving us this opportunity. I'm really humbled and glad.
Pleasure.
More to you. Thank you so much. God bless you all.
Thank you all.
you so
And if
very much.
anybody need more details about the program, already Mr. Anup already give us a discount, and you can find it in Kuwait chapter ICF in Instagram or LinkedIn. You can find lots of details about the program. So please, if you are interested, just go to our Instagram or LinkedIn, and you will see the details of the program and the discount. So it's a pleasure to be with all of you. I wish if we can stay more, but hopefully all of us will take the exam and we will pass it all. Thank you so much.
All the very best. All the very best.
Yeah.
God bless you all. Thank you.
All the
Thank you,
best,
Hada.
all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much. Thank you.